The snow was falling gently outside my car window as I drove toward my parents' house that Christmas Eve. The radio played soft holiday music, and my back seat was filled with carefully wrapped presents I had spent weeks choosing for everyone. After 3 years of missing family gatherings because of work, I was finally coming home. But something about my mother's voice when she called last week kept nagging at me. She sounded nervous, almost rehearsed. I told myself she was just busy with preparations. I had no idea that this Christmas dinner would forever change how I saw my own family. Before we dive into this story, let me know in the comments where you are watching from tonight. If you have ever felt like an outsider in your own family, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. And if you have ever had your generosity taken for granted, stay with me, because this story might feel a little too familiar. My name is Yetta, and I am 32 years old. I work as a senior financial analyst at a large corporation in Denver, Colorado. It is a job I worked incredibly hard to get, putting myself through college and graduate school without any help from my family. I am proud of what I have built, even though it meant sacrificing certain things along the way. I do not have a husband. I do not have children. And according to my family, that makes me different. My parents live in a quiet suburb outside Columbus, Ohio. My father, Gerald, is 61 years old and retired from an insurance company about 3 years ago. My mother, Diane, is 58 and has been a homemaker her entire adult life. Then there is my older brother, Marcus, who is 36. He married his high school sweetheart, Tanya, and they have 3 children together. Their twins, Emma and Ethan, are 8 years old, and their youngest, Lily, just turned 4. My sister Brenda is the oldest at 38. She is married to Kevin, and they have 2 kids as well. Their son Jake is 10, and their daughter Sophie is 6. Growing up, I was always the odd one out. While Marcus and Brenda followed the traditional path of early marriage and children, I chose to focus on my education and career. My parents never openly criticized my choices, but there was always this undercurrent of disappointment. Every holiday dinner came with questions about when I would settle down, when I would give them more grandchildren, when I would stop being so focused on work. Over the years, I learned to smile and change the subject. When I pulled into my parents' driveway that Christmas Eve, the house looked beautiful. Strings of white lights lined the roof, and a large wreath hung on the front door. Through the windows, I could see the glow of the Christmas tree they had set up in the living room. For a moment, I felt genuinely happy. This was home. These were my people. I grabbed as many gift bags as I could carry and walked up to the front door. Before I could even knock, it swung open, and my nieces and nephews came rushing out to greet me. Emma and Ethan wrapped themselves around my legs, while little Lily reached up for a hug. Jake tried to play it cool, but Sophie was jumping up and down with excitement. I had spent almost $800 on gifts for everyone. Each present was chosen specifically for the person receiving it. A cashmere scarf for my mother, a nice watch for my father, toys and games for all the kids, gift cards for my siblings and their spouses. I wanted this Christmas to be special. My mother appeared in the doorway, and something in her expression made me pause. She was smiling, but it did not reach her eyes. She hugged me quickly and ushered me inside, but she would not look directly at me. I told myself I was imagining things. My father was more animated than usual. He took my coat, asked about my drive, wanted to know all about work, and whether I had received my year-end bonus yet. The question struck me as odd, but I answered honestly. Yes, I had received a nice bonus. Yes, work was going well. He patted my shoulder and said he was proud of me, which was something he rarely expressed. Dinner that night was elaborate. My mother had prepared a huge turkey mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, homemade rolls, and 3 different pies for dessert. We all gathered around the large dining room table, and for a little while, everything felt normal. The kids were excited about Santa coming. The adults talked about the usual things: weather, sports, local news. But as the meal went on, I started noticing small things. Marcus and Brenda kept exchanging glances with my parents, quick looks across the table that seemed loaded with meaning. When I tried to join their conversations, the responses were short. polite but distant. At one point, I asked Brenda about her plans for New Year's Eve, and she just shrugged and said they had not decided yet. Then she immediately turned to talk to Kevin about something else. Tanya, my brother's wife, seemed uncomfortable throughout the entire meal. She kept fidgeting with her napkin and barely touched her food. Kevin was the same way, laughing at jokes a half-second too late, his smile never quite genuine. I caught Tanya looking at me with something that almost resembled pity, but when our eyes met, she quickly looked away. After dinner, when I offered to help clear the table and wash the dishes, my mother practically pushed me toward the living room. "No, no," she said. "You just relax. We will take care of everything." It was strange. My mother had always insisted that everyone pitch in after meals, but that night she wanted me as far from the kitchen as possible. The moment that changed everything happened about an hour after dinner. The kids were finally settled, playing with some toys in the corner of the living room. The adults were gathered around the Christmas tree, ready to open presents. I had stepped away to use the restroom, and when I returned, I pulled out my phone to check a message from a coworker. That is when I saw the notification from my bank. My heart stopped. According to the alert, my credit card had been charged $2,700. The transactions had occurred at Target and Best Buy, both stores I had not visited in weeks. My first thought was that my card had been stolen. I was about to call the bank to report fraud when something made me look up. The presents under the tree. There were so many more than I remembered from previous years. An iPad box with Jake's name on it, a Nintendo Switch for Emma and Ethan, an elaborate dollhouse for Lily, a fancy remote control car for Sophie, designer items for the adults. The pile was enormous. My hands started shaking as I scrolled through the transaction details on my phone. The charges had been made 3 days ago. 3 days. And then I remembered something that made my blood run cold. Last month, when I had come home for a quick weekend visit, my mother had asked to borrow my credit card. She said she needed to order some things online, and her own card was having issues. She promised she would pay me back right away. It was just for some small household items, she said. Maybe $50 or $60 at most. I had given her the card information without a second thought. She was my mother. Of course I trusted her. I looked at the mountain of expensive gifts. I looked at my phone. I looked at my mother, who was suddenly very interested in arranging ornaments on the tree and would not meet my eyes. My voice came out steadier than I expected. "Mom, did you use my card to buy all these gifts?" The room went silent. My mother's hands froze on the ornament she was holding. Marcus cleared his throat. Brenda suddenly needed to check on something in the kitchen. The children continued playing, oblivious to the tension that had descended on the room. My father stood up from his armchair. His expression was calm, almost casual, as if we were discussing the weather. He walked over to me and put his hand on my shoulder. "We voted Yetta." His voice was matter of fact. "You do not have kids, so you should pay for the ones who do. It is only fair." I could not process what I was hearing. I asked him to repeat himself, hoping I had misunderstood. He said it again, slower this time, as if explaining something simple to a child. The family had a discussion. We decided that since you make the most money and you do not have any children of your own, you should contribute more to Christmas. These kids deserve nice things, and you are in the best position to provide them. Marcus jumped in before I could respond. "Come on, Yetta. You probably make more money than all of us combined. $2,000 is nothing to you. You should be happy to do this for your nieces and nephews." Brenda reappeared from the kitchen, nodding along. "Do you have any idea how expensive it is to raise kids these days? Christmas nearly bankrupts us every year. You just have yourself to worry about. You can afford this easily." I felt like I was underwater. The voices around me seemed distant, muffled. I looked at Tanya and Kevin, hoping for some support, but they both stared at the floor, refusing to engage. "When did you vote?" I asked. "When did you have this discussion?" My father explained that they had all gotten on a video call the previous week. Everyone was there. My parents, Marcus and Brenda, Even Tanya and Kevin, though they apparently had not contributed much to the conversation. They had decided together that it was unfair for them to struggle with Christmas expenses when I was doing so well financially. Since I did not have children, I did not understand the burden. This was my way of contributing to the family. "I was not invited to this call," I said. My mother finally spoke, her voice high and nervous. "We did not want to burden you with the discussion, honey. We knew you would say yes anyway because you love the kids." Something broke inside me at that moment. I thought about all the years I had willingly given extra, the expensive birthday gifts, the contributions to family vacations I could not even attend because of work, the checks I wrote for school supplies and sports equipment and summer camps. I had always given freely out of love because I wanted to help. But this was different. They had taken from me. They had stolen my financial information and used it without permission. And worst of all, they had justified it by treating me like I was less than like my life choices made me an automatic source of funding for everyone else. My entire body was trembling as I pulled my phone from my pocket. My father laughed, a dismissive sound that made something cold settle in my chest. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "Call the police on your own family." I did not answer him. Instead, I walked out onto the front porch, closing the door behind me. The cold air hit my face, but I barely felt it. I scrolled through my contacts and found the number I was looking for. My friend Patricia is an attorney. We met in college, and she had always been someone I could count on for honest advice. I had helped her through her divorce 2 years ago, and she had always told me she owed me. I never expected to call in that favor, but here I was. She answered on the third ring, surprised to hear from me on Christmas night. I told her everything: the unauthorized charges, the family vote, my father's casual dismissal of my autonomy. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, her voice was serious. "Yetta," she said, "what they did is credit card fraud. It does not matter that they are family. You have every right to pursue this legally if you choose to." We talked for about 10 minutes. She explained my options, gave me advice on how to document everything, and promised to help in whatever way I needed. By the time I hung up, I had a plan. I walked back into the house. Everyone was watching me with varying degrees of concern and annoyance. My father had settled back into his armchair, confident that I had just needed to cool off. I looked at him directly. "Then you will love what comes next." He laughed again. "Sure, sweetheart. Merry Christmas." I gathered my coat and my purse, leaving behind all the gifts I had brought. As I walked toward the door, my mother called after me, asking where I was going. I did not answer. My brother shouted something about me being dramatic. My sister rolled her eyes and muttered about how I always had to make everything about myself. "Drive safe, honey," my father called out as I reached the door. "See you at Easter." I did not respond. I got in my car and drove back to Denver, through the snow, my mind clear and focused for the first time all evening. The next morning, December 26th, I began executing my plan. First, I called my bank. I explained that my credit card had been used without my authorization and requested a full investigation. The representative was helpful and sympathetic, documenting everything I told her. Then I composed an email to my parents and siblings. It was professional, not emotional. I stated the facts. On a specific date, my credit card was used without my permission to make purchases totaling $2,700. I requested full repayment within 7 days. If the money was not returned, I would be filing a formal fraud report with both the bank and local law enforcement. I attached screenshots of my bank statements and copies of the text messages from when my mother had originally asked to borrow my card. I also did something else. I spent 3 hours writing a detailed account of what had happened. Every conversation, every justification my family had offered, every dismissive comment. I wrote it all down in a calm, factual manner. Then I compiled a list of email addresses for my extended family: aunts, uncles, cousins, people who had always been told what a wonderful, close-knit family we were. I saved this document and the email list, but I did not send anything. Not yet. It was my insurance policy. The response from my immediate family came faster than I expected. By the morning of December 27th, my phone had 53 missed calls. My voicemail was full. My text messages were a wall of notifications. Marcus called me insane. He demanded to know if I had really reported our mother to the bank. He said I was destroying the family over nothing. He reminded me that I made plenty of money and should be ashamed of myself for being so selfish. Brenda called in tears. She asked how I could do this to them, especially right after Christmas. She said I needed to think about the children. What kind of aunt threatens her own family with legal action? She said I had always been cold, but this was a new low. My mother left voice message after voice message, each one more desperate than the last. Please, Yetta, let us talk about this. There has been a misunderstanding. We never meant to hurt you. Please do not do this. What will people think? The family will never be the same. My father's call came late that evening. His voice was different from the confident man at Christmas dinner. There was a tremor in it now. Yetta, he said, let us talk. This has gone too far. We can work this out. Please call me back. But the messages that surprised me most came from Tanya and Kevin. Both of them texted me privately away from their spouses. I never agreed with this, Tanya wrote. I told Marcus it was wrong, but he would not listen. I am so sorry they did this to you. You did not deserve it. Kevin's message was similar. I tried to say something during the call, but everyone talked over me. What they did was not right. I hope you know not all of us supported this. Their words confirmed what I had suspected. The vote had not been unanimous. There were people in my family who knew this was wrong, but had been too afraid to speak up. That knowledge did not make me feel better, but it did make me feel less alone. On December 30th, the money appeared in my account. $2,700 transferred in 3 separate payments. One from my parents, one from Marcus, and one from Brenda. No apology accompanied the transfers, just the money. An hour later, my father sent a text message. We are sorry. Please do not send that letter to the family. I had never told them about the letter. Somehow they had figured out that I had documentation ready to share with the extended family. Maybe they knew me better than I thought, or maybe they were simply afraid of what I might do next. I sat with my phone for a long time staring at his message. Part of me wanted to send the letter anyway. Part of me wanted to expose everything they had done. But that was anger talking, and I had learned enough about myself to know that acting from anger rarely led anywhere good. Instead, I sent a simple reply. The money is returned. But the trust is not. I need time. I did not go home for Easter that year. I did not go home for 4th of July either. When my nieces and nephews had birthdays, I sent cards and modest gifts directly to them, avoiding any contact with their parents. I kept my distance not out of spite, but out of necessity. I needed space to process what had happened and figure out what kind of relationship I wanted with my family going forward. The months that followed were difficult. I had always thought of myself as independent, as someone who did not need validation from others. But the truth was that my family's betrayal cut deep. I found myself replaying the Christmas dinner in my mind, analyzing every word, every look, every dismissive laugh. Some nights I could not sleep. Other nights I slept too much, using unconsciousness as an escape from the pain. I started seeing a therapist in February. Her name was Dr. Annette Washington, and she specialized in family dynamics and boundary setting. In our sessions, she helped me understand patterns I had never recognized before. I had been the family helper since childhood, always the one who gave more sacrificed, more expected less. My parents had trained me to believe that my worth was tied to what I could provide for others. When I chose a different life path than my siblings, I unconsciously tried to make up for it by being more generous financially. What they did was wrong, Dr. Washington told me. But understanding the pattern helps you break it. You get to decide what your relationships look like from now on. I started making changes. I reconnected with old friends I had neglected because I was always saving my time and energy for family obligations. I joined a hiking club and spent weekends exploring trails in the Rocky Mountains. I met people who had their own complicated family histories, and we supported each other through the hard conversations and difficult boundaries. In June, I did something I had never done before. I booked a solo trip to Italy. For 2 weeks, I wandered through Rome and Florence and Venice, spending money on myself without guilt. I ate incredible food. I visited museums. I sat in small cafes and wrote in my journal. For the first time in my life, I experienced what it felt like to prioritize my own happiness without worrying about whether I was being selfish. When I returned from that trip, something had shifted. The anger toward my family had faded, replaced by something more complex. I still loved them. I probably always would, but I understood now that love did not mean accepting mistreatment. Love did not mean being a source of funding without consent. Love did not mean abandoning my own needs to meet theirs. About a year after that Christmas, I finally agreed to see my family again. We met at a restaurant neutral territory. The conversation was awkward at first, filled with long silences and careful word choices. But slowly, we began to find our way. My mother cried when she apologized. She said she had never thought of it as stealing. In her mind, she was just helping the grandchildren have a nice Christmas, and she had assumed I would not mind. She knew now that she had been wrong. She should have asked. She should have respected my boundaries. My father's apology was harder for him. He was a proud man, and admitting fault did not come naturally. But he managed to say the words. He told me he had taken me for granted because I never complained. He thought my success meant I did not struggle, did not have needs of my own. He was sorry for treating me like a bank account instead of a daughter. Marcus and Brenda apologized too, though their words felt more rehearsed, less sincere. I accepted their apologies anyway. Healing does not require perfection. It just requires enough. Today, my relationship with my family is different than it was before. There are boundaries now, clear expectations. When holidays come around, we discuss gifts openly. Everyone contributes what they can afford, and no one expects anyone else to cover more than their share. I still buy presents for my nieces and nephews, but I choose what to give based on what I want to give, not what I feel obligated to provide. Some people might say I should have cut my family off completely. Maybe they are right. But family is complicated, and forgiveness is a personal choice. I chose to forgive not because they deserved it, but because carrying that anger was exhausting. Letting go set me free. Here's what I learned from that terrible Christmas. Your worth is not determined by what you give to others. Loving someone does not mean letting them take advantage of you. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for your family is to say no. If you are watching this and you feel like the invisible ATM in your family, I want you to know something. You are allowed to have boundaries. You are allowed to be more than what you provide. You are allowed to be loved for who you are, not for what you can give. So let me ask you this. Have you ever had your generosity taken for granted by people you love? Have you ever felt like your worth to your family was measured in dollar signs instead of who you actually are? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this video resonated with you, please give it a like and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Subscribe to this channel if you want more stories about setting boundaries and finding your own path. And remember, you deserve to be valued for exactly who you are. Thank you so much for watching and for being part of this community. Wherever you are in the world tonight, I hope you know that your worth is not negotiable. Take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next video.